Unity has finally realized just how bad their mistake is. And now, in their panic, they are apologizing to everyone they upset. And when I say panic, I mean it. I don't think I've seen a company do such a public nosedive in a long time. I mean, I'm pretty sure at this point that even if the CEO personally got on his knees and begged for forgiveness in front of an assembled mass of Unity developers, they still wouldn't trust Unity in the future. And that's kind of a big deal with how big Unity is in the indie game developer space. I mean, colleges even teach entire courses on Unity game development. I personally took 2 classes on it myself, but I won't be going near it with a 10-foot pole anytime soon. So today, let's talk about what they did, their apology, and what they're doing to pretty much beg people not to leave, and what I think is going to happen. Firstly, I guess I should tell you what Unity is in case you don't know. It's a game engine that made it easy for developers, mostly indie, but with some notable big companies using it too, to make games without worrying about developing their own engine, and allowed them to easily export their games for a number of major platforms. Since it's big with indie devs, the pricing on Unity has historically been very low, with no real significant cost, until you reach a fairly high degree of success. A lot of people compare it to Unreal, which is one of its competitors. I've seen a number of content creators saying stuff like, Unity is for 2D and Unreal is for 3D. And I just want to point out that that's just completely false, and I have no idea where they got that idea. You can use Unity to make 3D games, 2D games, VR games, etc. It's like a Swiss Army knife. But anyway, they were really big with the indie scene because Unity is easy to use, has a lot of resources for devs to use, and it wasn't that expensive for indie studios. The low cost and high demand of Unity developers in the workforce led to colleges offering Unity courses, which has worked to skyrocket Unity's success, since a lot of the fresh out of college game devs are already trained and willing to use the Unity engine. Unity seemed to have thought that this entrenchment that they'd managed to dig with the indie developers was going to keep the indie devs at the very least with them no matter what they decide to do. And well, as it turns out, the Unity CEO once said that it might be a good idea to add a feature to Battlefield that would charge users money for ammo once they're far enough into a play session, back when he worked at EA. So I think it's obvious what he was going to go after: money, as much money as possible. And so Unity decided to go for the bad ending and start down the path of greed. They announced without much warning one day that they were changing the entire pricing model for Unity. Of course, any pricing change would be bad since devs have already sunk so much time and effort into their games on Unity that switching would be difficult, so they're basically forced to go along with it or abandon their projects, which isn't exactly a fair bargaining environment. But Unity went full Standard Oil on this one, adding a runtime fee, which would charge developers not for every time their game is sold, but for every time it was installed, which on its face is ridiculous because Unity has no way of knowing how many times a game has been installed, unless they were planning on embedding spyware into the runtime. But what's worse is that it seemed like, since it's per install, if you have more than one gaming device, the developer would get charged for every single time you put it on another device, but they only sold you one copy. On top of that, it seemed like Unity intended to include pirated copies in this as well, which would see developers charged for copies they never made any money on. Even worse, anyone with a tiny bit of computer knowledge could have set up virtual machines to install a game as many times as they want, making an easy way for bad actors to instill financial harm onto the developers. Basically, it seemed like no one with half a brain at Unity took a look at this and bothered to think about the implications before releasing. The problem Unity had was that despite it being kind of difficult for people to move away from Unity, people don't really like being screwed over. Even after it was clarified that the new fees wouldn't kick in until 200,000 installs and $200,000 in income over 12 months, people were still upset. So the sentiment in the developer community was basically that indie devs who were working on Unity were going to finish their games if they couldn't feasibly port them to another engine and then just never develop in the Unity engine again. Because despite how popular Unity is, it's not like it's in a field that it holds a monopoly on. Immediately, people realized they could just swap to Unreal or Godot. Godot got a lot of attention here particularly because it's an open source and free engine, kind of the opposite of what Unity was turning into. The game developer rage got so much attention that even non-developers started to hear about it, and it made the news. I think that in corporate America, the guys at the top, the big dog executive types, who tend to be out of touch in a company like Unity, don't notice pushback or negative sentiment until they start getting emails from reporters, which is kind of weird because mainstream media is dying out, but hey, I did say they were out of touch. I think they started getting contacted by all sorts of people interested not just in the changes, but the massive negative reaction and news of developers boycotting the engine, and they finally realized that this might not have been that good of an idea, because they went into damage control mode. They released this rare open letter to their community in which they essentially walk back everything and put in place a much more realistic and developer-oriented fee structure. To our community, I'm Mark Whitten, and I lead Unity Create, which includes the Unity engine and editor teams. I want to start with this. I am sorry. We should have spoken with more of you, and we should have incorporated more of your feedback before announcing our new runtime fee policy. Our goal with this policy is to ensure we can continue to support you today and tomorrow, and keep deeply investing in our game engine. You are what makes Unity great, and we know we need to listen, and work hard to earn your trust. We have heard your concerns, and we are making changes in the policy we announced to address them. Our Unity Personal plan will remain free, and there will be no runtime fee for games built on Unity Personal. We will be increasing the cap from $100,000 to $200,000, and we will remove the requirement to use the Made with Unity splash screen. No game with less than $1 million in trailing 12-month revenue will be subject to the fee. For those creators on Unity Pro and Unity Enterprise, we are also making changes based on your feedback. The runtime fee policy will only apply beginning with the next long-time support version of Unity shipping in 2024 and beyond. Your games that are currently shipped and the projects you are currently working on will not be included unless you choose to upgrade them to this new version of Unity. We will make sure that you can stay on the terms applicable for the version of Unity editor you are using, as long as you keep using that version. For games that are subject to the runtime fee, we are giving you a choice of either a 2.5% revenue share or the calculated amount based on the number of new people engaging with your game each month. Both of these numbers are self-reported from data you already have available. You will always be billed the lesser amount. We want to continue to build the best engine for creators. We truly love this industry, and you are the reason why. I'd like to invite you to join me for a live fireside chat hosted by Jason Wyman today at 4 p.m, where I will do my best to answer your questions. In the meantime, here are some more details. Thank you for caring as deeply as you do, and thank you for giving us hard feedback. Mark Whitten. The problem for Unity is that I think this is too little too late. While removing fees for Unity Personal, increasing the cap and force splash screen for it as well, saying that no game making less than $1 million in 12 months will have to pay anything, and swapping to the 2.5% revenue share for games that do reach the thresholds rather than a runtime fee was good. The 2.5% revenue share being very good when compared to Unreal. They've already lost the trust of their users, and I don't think there's any way to get that back. What Unity did here was a move so incredibly greedy, making it financially infeasible for developers to continue to release games using an engine they know and have been using for years. When their core user base was indie devs, a demographic known for being basically just people doing game development in their spare time, or people who have decided to invest a lot of their available cash into making their dream game into a reality. Either way, not a demographic that's financially stable. And those indie devs were just forced not only to consider the financial prospect of staying on Unity long term, but also the reality that Unity is a company that has now shown that it is willing to screw over its devs on a whim, even if it did end up capitulating in the end. And that damage is not going to be easy for Unity to undo. Personally, I think this mistake was so huge that the only way I would ever trust Unity again is if they fired all of their leadership staff, especially the CEO. Because otherwise, what reason do I have to think that they won't try this again in 6 months? What I see happening from here is that there will be a few months to a year of slow decline in the usership of Unity as developers finish up projects that they've already started and take the time to become acquainted with another engine. And once that's over, so is Unity. I really don't know how they recover from this. What do you guys think? Is it possible? That's all I've got for today, so thank you for watching, have a great day, and God bless you.